Long before the word Mexico was ever spoken, this land already had a soul, and that soul was ancient, fierce, and full of gods. Volcanoes breathed fire into the sky. Rivers carved veins through jungles older than time. And beneath those jungles, civilizations rose and vanished like ghosts. The Olmecs came first, the mother culture of Mesoamerica. They carved colossal heads from stone, faces of forgotten kings staring into eternity. Then came the Maya, masters of astronomy, mathematics, and death. Their cities were built for the gods, not for men. When the moon eclipsed the sun, they believed the heavens demanded blood. They obeyed. Far to the north, in a valley surrounded by mountains, another empire would soon rise. An empire that would make even the Mayan priests tremble. They called themselves the Mexica. We call them the Aztecs. Their capital, Tenochtitlan, floated on the waters of a vast lake, a city of temples and canals, gardens and gold. At its heart stood the Great Pyramid, where the gods were fed not with prayers, but with human hearts. They believed the sun itself would die if men stopped bleeding for it. So every dawn, when the first light touched the stones, knives flashed and the gods were satisfied for one more day. But prophecy whispered of pale men who would come from the sea, riding beasts of thunder, bringing fire that fell from their hands. And in the year 1519, the prophecy walked ashore. Hernán Cortés landed on the coast with barely 600 men. But behind him stood centuries of conquest and greed. He burned his ships so his soldiers could never return. Then he marched inland, guided by a woman history would call La Malinche, translator, lover, traitor, the first voice between two worlds. When Cortés reached the Aztec capital, Emperor Moctezuma II welcomed him as a god. Gold was offered, friendship spoken, and then chains replaced the words. Within 2 years, the empire of millions fell to a few hundred Spaniards. Their swords, their disease, and their ruthless faith. The gods of the old world were silenced. The cross replaced the sun. The conquest was not just of land, but of memory. Temples were torn down, idols smashed, tongues forbidden. But the land remembered. Every mountain, every cenote, every skull beneath the earth still whispered in the dark, "We are not gone." Spain ruled for 3 centuries. Silver flowed from the mines of Zacatecas and Guanajuato. Blood flowed from the backs of the people who dug it. Slavery wore the mask of faith, and in the jungles, old gods waited for their revenge. By the early 19th century, whispers of freedom spread like smoke. In 1810, a priest named Miguel Hidalgo rang a bell in the town of Dolores. His cry, "Viva Mexico!" was answered by thousands. The war for independence began. It was not clean nor noble. Villages burned, empires fell, and when it ended in 1821, Spain was gone, but peace never came. A century of chaos followed. Generals became presidents, presidents became corpses. In 1846, the United States invaded from the north. By the time the smoke cleared, Mexico had lost half its land. Texas, California, Arizona, New Mexico, a wound that never truly healed. Then came Porfirio Diaz, the dictator who ruled for 35 years. He promised progress and delivered fear. Railroads and telegraphs appeared, but so did prisons and firing squads. The rich grew richer, the poor starved. And in 1910, the volcano erupted again. The Mexican Revolution began, a storm of betrayal and revenge. Names like Pancho Villa and Emiliano Zapata became legends. They rode through dust and gunfire, fighting not for politics, but for the soul of a broken nation. 10 years of war left 1 million dead. The land drank deeply. When the guns finally fell silent, Mexico was reborn, tired, scarred, haunted. But something darker was already stirring in the shadows. The world was changing. A new empire was rising, not of kings or soldiers, but of drugs. In the mid-20th century, small farmers in Sinaloa began growing opium poppies for the morphine that fed the wars of others. Later came marijuana, then cocaine. The smuggling routes turned into veins, pumping billions of dollars north to the United States, and death back south. The government tried to fight it, but corruption was already in its blood. Police, judges, generals, all for sale. And from the chaos rose new kings, men who ruled not from palaces, but from bunkers and jungles. Men with names that would one day terrify the world. Their story was only beginning. By the mid-20th century, the seeds of a new empire were already buried in the mountains of Sinaloa, small, green, and deadly. What began as scattered farmers selling opium and marijuana quietly evolved into the most powerful criminal network on Earth. In the beginning, there were no cartels. There were only families, smugglers who moved contraband north for a profit, crossing invisible lines through the desert. But profit is a god that always wants more. In the 1970s, the Mexican government, under pressure from the United States, began cracking down on traffickers. Crops were burned, men arrested, but corruption grew faster than justice. The police were not protectors. They were businessmen in uniform. Every officer had a price. Every politician had a secret. And in that soil of greed, a monster was born, the Mexican drug cartel system. The first of these was the Guadalajara cartel, led by three men. Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, known as El Padrino, the Godfather. Rafael Caro Quintero, the young prince of marijuana. And Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, Don Nato, the old wise wolf. Together, they united traffickers across the country, controlling every route, every shipment, every bribe. They turned Mexico into a single criminal corporation. Felix Gallardo made deals not just with smugglers, but with generals, governors, and bankers. He was charming, educated, invisible. Under his command, tons of cocaine began to flow north, not from Mexico, but from Colombia, home of Pablo Escobar. The Medellin cartel produced it, Mexico delivered it. For every kilo that crossed the border, both empires grew richer. But power never stays united for long. In 1985, everything changed. An American DEA agent named Enrique Kiki Camarena was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered after discovering a massive drug plantation in Chihuahua. His death unleashed a storm. The United States demanded justice. Felix Gallardo's empire began to crumble under the weight of its own arrogance. The Guadalajara cartel shattered, and from its ashes, new beasts emerged. The Tijuana cartel, the Juarez cartel, and the most notorious of all, the Sinaloa cartel. Sinaloa was led by quiet, ruthless men who preferred loyalty over fame. One of them was Joaquin Guzman Loera, a short, unassuming trafficker known by one nickname that would echo across the planet, El Chapo. He was born in poverty, raised in the mountains, and learned early that mercy had no place in his world. By the 1990s, his operations stretched across continents. Planes, tunnels, submarines, every path to the United States carried his mark. When authorities closed one route, he built three more. When rivals attacked, he buried them in the desert. The 1990s were a war with no borders. Tijuana, Juarez, Sinaloa, Gulf. Each cartel fought for power with bullets, fire, and fear. Corruption infected everything: police, military, even presidents. Journalists were silenced, mayors disappeared, families fled their homes. Entire towns became ghost cities ruled by narcos. And while death spread through Mexico, billions of dollars flowed into American banks. The Sinaloa cartel, under El Chapo, became an empire of both terror and innovation. He was a ghost, a myth. Captured in 1993 in Guatemala, he escaped 8 years later from a high-security prison, hidden inside a laundry cart. The legend grew. For the poor, he became a twisted hero, a man who fought the government and won. For his enemies, he was death itself. But the rise of one king always means the fall of another. In the 2000s, as Mexico shifted toward democracy, a new president promised to destroy the cartels once and for all, Felipe Calderón. He launched the war on drugs, sending tens of thousands of soldiers into the streets. What followed was not peace, but hell. Cartels splintered into smaller, bloodier factions: Zetas, Knights Templar, La Familia, each more violent than the last. The number of murders exploded. Between 2006 and 2012, over 60,000 people were killed. Some say more than 100,000. Mass graves covered the countryside. Bodies hung from bridges as warnings. The war became its own business, and no one was truly winning. The Zetas, former elite soldiers turned mercenaries, brought military tactics into the underworld. They filmed executions, uploaded them online, spreading terror like wildfire. The line between war and propaganda vanished. And through it all, El Chapo kept building his tunnels, kept bribing guards, kept escaping. In 2014, after 13 years on the run, he was captured again in Mazatlan. The government celebrated, but in less than 2 years he escaped once more, this time through a mile-long tunnel that led directly into his prison cell, complete with rails, lights, and a motorcycle. It was the most audacious escape in modern history. The myth of El Chapo became unstoppable. By 2016, he was captured again, finally extradited to the United States. Today, he serves a life sentence in a maximum security prison, but his empire still breathes. Sinaloa did not die with its king, it evolved. His sons, the Chapitos, now fight among themselves and against the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, a younger, deadlier organization led by Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, El Mencho. This new cartel is faster, richer, more brutal. They use drones, encrypted networks, and terror as their currency. The war never ended. It only changed shape. Mexico bleeds, but the world keeps buying. Every pill, every gram, every high sold in Los Angeles, New York, or London is paid for in Mexican blood. And every government, every consumer, every bank that launders the money is part of the same silent machinery. The cartels no longer hide in jungles. They live among the people. They build churches, sponsor festivals, feed the poor, and bury those who speak against them. To many, they are both devils and saints. In some villages, shrines to Santa Muerte, the Holy Death, stand beside the Virgin Mary. The people pray for protection, for money, for revenge. Faith and fear walk hand in hand. The land of Mexico has become what it always was, a place of gods and ghosts, of miracles and murders, where light and darkness are the same coin, flipped endlessly in the hands of men who cannot stop killing. In Mexico, death has never been a stranger. It lives in every prayer, every mural, every song. The people here do not fear it, they dance with it. And from that dance was born a cult, a faith, a mirror of the country itself, Santa Muerte, Holy Death. She is the skeleton in a wedding dress, the reaper with a crown of roses. To some, she is evil. To others, she is mercy. Her followers light candles and leave offerings of tequila, bullets, and cigarettes. They ask her for protection, for wealth, for safe passage through the night. And for the narcos, she is the patron saint of their empire. Before a mission, before a killing, before a shipment crosses the border, they whisper to her name, La Niña Blanca, the white girl. This faith grew not in churches, but in the streets, in prisons, brothels, and barrios forgotten by God and government alike. Where the Virgin offered forgiveness, Santa Muerte offered justice. Where the law abandoned, she remained. And so she became the mother of a nation that survives between crime and survival, between guilt and grace. The cult spread like smoke through a burning house. By the 2000s, millions of Mexicans prayed to her openly. Altars glowed in every city. Processions filled the night with bones and candles. The police called it blasphemy. The church called it heresy. But for the people, she was hope, the only one that answered. Meanwhile, the drug war devoured everything. New cartels rose from the corpses of the old. They fought not only for territory, but for symbols. The power to control fear itself. They hung banners over highways called narcomantas, threatening rivals and politicians alike. They filmed executions with orchestral music, turned death into propaganda, and uploaded it to the internet like a national ritual. Violence became language. Blood became message. Every year, tens of thousands vanished. Journalists, students, farmers, mothers. They call them los desaparecidos, the disappeared. Their faces cover walls, their names fill the wind. and the earth keeps swallowing secrets. Mass graves lie under cornfields, roads, and even police stations. Sometimes the families dig with their own hands, searching not for justice, but for bones. The government speaks of progress, but behind the numbers lies silence. Each administration promises to end the war. Each one feeds it instead, because war is profitable, not only for cartels, but for those who pretend to fight them. Guns flow south, money flows north, a circle of blood without beginning or end. In the borderlands, life and death trade places by the minute. Cities like Ciudad Juarez, Tijuana, and Reynosa glow red at night, not from neon, but from fires. Factories hum beside torture houses. Church bells echo beside gunshots. Children play near bullet-ridden walls, learning before school that the world belongs to whoever pulls the trigger first. And yet amid all this horror, Mexico refuses to die. Art blooms from pain. Poets write about ghosts. Filmmakers turn crime into myth. Musicians sing narco corridos, ballads praising outlaws as modern heroes. The same man who kills by morning is sung about by night. Morality dissolves into survival. The world watches in fascination, half afraid, half addicted. Tourists come for beaches, tacos, and tequila. But behind the postcard lies a second Mexico, one made of whispers and fear. They sense it in the air. The beauty is built on bones. The land is haunted not by the past, but by the present. Even the earth seems cursed. Earthquakes shake the capital. Hurricanes batter the coasts. Volcanoes breathe ash. Every few years, nature reminds the people that nothing here is permanent. But perhaps that's why Mexicans celebrate death, because they know it's always near, waiting, watching, inevitable. And yet in this eternal twilight, there is something almost holy, a resilience that no empire, no cartel, no dictator has ever destroyed. When the music starts on the Day of the Dead, and candles flicker across endless cemeteries, it is not a celebration of decay. It is defiance. It is the country telling the universe, we're still here. In Mexico, power has always worn two faces. One smiles for the people, the other whispers to the cartels. For decades, the line between the government and organized crime blurred until it disappeared completely. Presidents shook hands with bishops in daylight and with traffickers at night. Politics became theater, corruption, religion. During the late 20th century, Mexico's ruling party, the PRI, the Institutional Revolutionary Party, ruled not by democracy, but by control. It was called the perfect dictatorship. The illusion of order hid the machinery of bribes, disappearances, and manipulation. Every governor, every police chief, every general owed someone above him, and someone below him feared him. And through this invisible network flowed billions of narco dollars, keeping the illusion of peace alive. The United States played its role as well. Publicly, it condemned the drug trade. Privately, it depended on it. Cocaine and heroin fueled its streets. Drug money filled its banks. The DEA hunted traffickers, but the CIA made deals with them. During the Cold War, American agents traded silence for information, arms for influence, and turned a blind eye to the empire growing just across the border. Every wall they built came too late. By the 1990s, Mexico had become the beating heart of the global narcotics industry. Planes flew from Colombia to Sinaloa, loaded with powder worth more than gold. Ships crossed the Pacific. Submarines glided through the Gulf. Trafficking was no longer a crime. It was an economy. Entire towns depended on it. If the cartels stopped, so would the country. The politicians knew this. So they learned to dance with the devil, not to destroy him, but to negotiate. Every cartel had its protector. Every protector had a price. A governor's campaign funded by narco money. A police convoy escorting shipments through the night. A general providing intel for assassins. Loyalty shifted faster than the wind. And justice was just another business deal. When the war on drugs began, it was not a war against crime. It was a war between factions of the same beast. The government claimed victories, showing seized weapons and piles of cocaine on television, while behind the cameras, new cartels rose to replace the fallen. The violence became cyclical, mechanical, a ritual of blood to keep the illusion of progress alive. The media played its part too. Newspapers silenced by fear, journalists murdered for telling the wrong truth. Since the year 2000, more than 100 reporters have been killed. Some vanished, some tortured, some hung in public as warnings. Mexico became one of the most dangerous places on earth, not for soldiers, but for words. And yet the people kept speaking. Activists, mothers, students, marching with photos of the disappeared, chanting names the state had tried to erase. Their courage became the conscience of a nation drowning in silence. But courage alone cannot stop bullets. In 2014, the world watched in horror as 43 students from Ayotzinapa vanished after being arrested by local police in Guerrero. The investigation uncovered a nightmare. The police had handed them over to a cartel. They were never seen again. The government promised truth. The truth never came. That night tore the mask off the system. It showed what everyone already knew, that the state and the cartels were no longer enemies. They were partners, and the victims were everyone else. Even religion bent under this reality. Priests blessed convoys. Churches took donations from traffickers. In some towns, the local cartel replaced the government entirely, providing food, medicine, and justice. They decided who lived and who died. The people obeyed, not out of loyalty, but because there was no alternative. Democracy had become a myth. And through it all, the world kept consuming. The same countries that demanded Mexico's war against drugs continued to buy those very drugs by the ton. Billions in narco money flowed into global banks. Citigroup, HSBC, Deutsche Bank washed clean and reinvested in the same systems that condemned it. It was not a Mexican tragedy anymore. It was an international business. Mexico became the bleeding heart of a world addicted to its pain. The cartels were not the disease, they were the symptom. The true sickness was greed, everywhere, in every border, every transaction. As long as there was demand, there would be supply. And as long as there was money, there would be death. Still, amid the corruption, some fought back. Small communities formed self-defense militias, auto defenses, ordinary citizens who took up arms against both the narcos and the state. For a moment, it seemed like hope. But soon even they were corrupted, infiltrated, consumed by the same cycle. In Mexico, even heroes are temporary. The border became a wound, a scar of light and wire separating wealth from survival. Every day, thousands risked their lives crossing into the United States, fleeing violence, chasing the illusion of safety. Many never made it. The desert took them, silent and merciless, and yet life went on. Markets opened at dawn. Children went to school beside bullet holes. Weddings, funerals, and gunfights shared the same calendar. In Mexico, the extraordinary became ordinary, and ordinary people became legends just for surviving another day. The 21st century changed everything and nothing. The war still raged, but now it had Wi-Fi, drones, and hashtags. The cartels no longer ruled only the mountains and the cities. They ruled the internet, the banks, the music, and the minds of a new generation. In the past, power came from land, guns, and soldiers. Now it came from data, surveillance, and fear. The cartels adapted faster than governments ever could. They built digital armies, hackers who could track cell phones, intercept messages, and follow every move of the enemy. What used to be a war fought in alleys and deserts now unfolded across servers and satellites. The bullets were still real, but the intelligence behind them had become invisible. The Jalisco New Generation cartel, led by El Mencho, became the symbol of this evolution. Unlike the old bosses who preferred shadows, El Mencho used spectacle. His men filmed convoys of armored trucks, drones dropping explosives, soldiers saluting him like a general. They spread these videos online, part intimidation, part advertisement. Violence became marketing. Every image was a message. We are stronger than the state. While governments debated and economies collapsed, the cartels filled the vacuum. They built roads, provided jobs, offered protection, a twisted form of governance. In some regions, they collected taxes, enforced curfews, even punished petty thieves. They became the unofficial state, more efficient, more ruthless, and far more feared. The new generation didn't hide in jungles. They dressed in designer clothes, drove Lamborghinis, posted selfies with gold-plated rifles. Social media turned murderers into celebrities. Songs, movies, and memes glorified their power. For young people born in poverty, these men looked like success. A gun, a chain, a prayer to Santa Muerte, and you too could be immortal. The government, meanwhile, kept changing faces. Each president promised a new beginning. Each one left with more bodies in the ground. The numbers grew impossible to grasp. Over 300,000 dead since 2006. More than 100,000 missing. Tens of thousands of orphaned children. Each number was a story, a scream, a silence. And yet, for the rest of the world, life went on. Tourists returned to Cancun, investors to Mexico City, filmmakers to the deserts of Sonora. Netflix made series about narcos. Hollywood turned drug lords into anti-heroes. The world consumed Mexico's tragedy as entertainment, unaware or unwilling to see that the blood was real. The global economy depends on shadows. For every kilo of cocaine seized, 10 more cross the border. For every account frozen, 1,000 are laundered through shell companies, cryptocurrency, and luxury real estate. The war is not between nations anymore. It's between the visible and the hidden. And in that hidden world, Mexico is both battlefield and banker. Technology brought efficiency, but it also brought despair. Cameras on every corner, drones in every sky, algorithms predicting every crime. And yet the killings continued. Because corruption is not a glitch in the system. It is the system. By the late 2010s, the cartels expanded beyond drugs. They controlled human trafficking, illegal mining, oil theft, even avocado trade. Anything that could be sold was theirs. The same routes that once smuggled cocaine now moved migrants, stolen fuel, and children. The same officials who fought organized crime profited from it. In this new order, morality was a luxury no one could afford. And through it all, the people endured. They laughed, cried, worked, prayed. Every November, they painted skulls, lit candles, and danced for the dead. The world saw a festival. Mexico saw resistance. Each candle was a message. We remember you. You still exist. But beneath that light still lurked the same darkness. Entire regions fell under control of cartels stronger than the government. In Michoacán, villagers lived between rival groups, the CJNG and local militias, both demanding loyalty, both promising protection, both bringing death. In Tamaulipas, soldiers fought in daylight while traffickers ruled by night. The line between law and crime had evaporated completely. Then came the pandemic, and the masks changed again. When COVID spread across the world, cartels used it as an opportunity. While the government stumbled, the narcos delivered food, medicine, and money. They filmed themselves handing out boxes labeled with their logos. A grotesque blend of charity and propaganda. They called it narco-humanitarianism. The people, abandoned by the state, had no choice but to accept. The war never paused, it simply adapted. Today, in the 2020s, Mexico stands at a crossroads between empire and extinction. Its people are among the bravest, most creative, most resilient on earth, and yet trapped in a cycle written by history itself. Colonization, corruption, crime, different centuries, same story. Each generation inherits not peace, but survival. Still, there is something extraordinary here, a heartbeat that refuses to stop. It's in the laughter at a street market, the music echoing from a fiesta, the colors that cover every wall. It's in the mothers digging through the earth with their bare hands, searching for sons who vanished years ago. It's in the journalists who still write, knowing it might cost their lives. It's in the idea that even when surrounded by death, you can still choose life. That's what makes Mexico terrifying. Not its violence, not its darkness, but its endurance. It should have collapsed 100 times. It didn't. It still breathes. It still dreams. The story of Mexico has always been written in contradictions. Faith and violence, beauty and despair, chaos and creation. To understand its future, you must first accept its curse, that the land itself remembers. Every stone, every drop of rain, every bullet carries echoes of everything that came before. The ghosts of conquistadors still wander the valleys. The whispers of the Aztec priests still haunt the wind over Tenochtitlan's ruins. And somewhere, deep beneath the earth, the old gods wait, not for worship, but for revenge. Modern Mexico stands on a battlefield built by centuries. It is a democracy with the heart of a revolution, an economy fed by both industry and crime, a culture that celebrates life by embracing death. It should not exist, and yet it does. Perhaps that is its greatest miracle. The people have learned to live in two worlds. By day they work, study, laugh, and love. By night they lock their doors, pray for safety, and listen for the sounds outside. The hum of motorcycles, the echo of gunfire, the silence that follows. But they keep living. They always keep living. That is what no empire, no cartel, no government has ever been able to destroy. In recent years, a new generation has begun to rise. Artists, journalists, teachers, scientists, tired of fear, tired of silence. They carry smartphones instead of rifles, words instead of weapons. They film, they share, they expose. They fight not on battlefields, but online, against lies, corruption, and the slow erosion of truth. It is a fragile hope, but hope nonetheless. Technology cuts both ways. The same internet that spreads propaganda can also reveal it. The same camera that films murder can record proof. And sometimes light slips through even the darkest tunnels. But the struggle is far from over. The cartels are not gone. They've evolved. They wear suits, hold passports, run corporations. Their power no longer ends at Mexico's borders. It moves through global systems, stocks, real estate, cryptocurrency. You can't fight shadows with guns. Yet there is a deeper force here, one that defies logic. The spirit of Mexico itself. It's not just a nation, it's an organism, wounded, scarred, but alive. Every time it's cut open, it bleeds color, music, laughter. Every tragedy births art. Every funeral turns into a song. Every act of violence meets defiance in the form of beauty. This is why the world fears Mexico. Not because of its cartels, but because of its honesty. It holds a mirror to humanity and shows what we all try to hide. That civilization and savagery are never far apart. That progress is built on bones. That peace is often just the pause between wars. Look closely, and you'll see that Mexico is not just a place. It is an idea, a living paradox that refuses to vanish. It's the truth that beneath every skyscraper, there's a grave. Beneath every fiesta, there's grief. And beneath every death, there's rebirth. The children growing up today may still hear gunfire, but they also hear music, stories, dreams. They are the descendants of warriors, rebels, poets, and saints. They inherit not only pain, but pride. The kind of pride that builds altars from ashes and turns fear into art. One day, perhaps, they'll finish what centuries of blood could not. They'll turn survival into peace. Until then, the candles will keep burning. Santa Muerte will keep watching. The rivers will keep running red and gold. And the people, the same people who have endured conquest, dictatorship, revolution, and endless war, will keep walking through the shadows, carrying light. Because that is what Mexico has always been. Not a land of despair, but a land of endurance. A place where even death bows its head before the will to live. Pause. Mexico, the land of blood and shadows. Subscribe, because the story isn't over yet.